good evening and welcome to a finals edition of the Hamlon Football Netball League Senior Footy Show. What a weekend of Hamlon League finals footy last weekend. Hilly, of course, on Saturday, a 1-point victory to the North Warrnambool Eagles over Terang Mortlake. It was an absolute belter, wasn't it?
Oh, mate, great game of footy. I guess it was a game of two halves. I reckon Terang Mortlake had the real control in that first half, had a great blistering first quarter, and then as we know, North Warrnambool, they can set up really well defensively and they plugged a lot of holes, blocked the corridor and just probably didn't allow the Bloods to get that running game going across half-back. So, terrific game of footy. It was right down to the wire and it was a beautiful start to Hamlon League finals.
And then, of course, on Sunday over at Hanlon Park, big crowds at both venues over the weekend. It was magnificent. The Cobden Bombers upset the champs, Koroit. They've won the last 7, mate. It was a great victory for Cobden.
It was another great game. Obviously, the Bombers had control for the first half and then we knew that Koroit wouldn't lie down. Kicked 5 goals to zip in that third term to bring it to, I think it was 3 points at three-quarter time. The Bombers got an early one and then they sort of were able to carry out with that sort of form in that last quarter. But unbelievable weekend of footy, terrific. And it's a little bit different now. Obviously not seeing the Saints, progressing that little bit further. But I'll tell you what, I don't think they'll be down for too long. They'll be back firing in 2024, I reckon. Yeah,
no, absolutely. Already hearing whispers of Sammy Dobson, Jack O'Sullivan back. So, it's unbelievable. We haven't even started an off-season. We haven't finished this season yet, which is crazy. Hey, one of the stars of the competition, he won the Coleman Medal in the Hamlon Football Netball League, is the Kane Train. We love him on Hamlon League Live. He's been kind enough to join us tonight. They take on Cobden, of course, at the Gardens Oval Port Ferry on Sunday. No next week. And Will Kane, how are you, buddy?
Yeah, going well, boys. Thanks for having me on.
Mate, obviously a little bit disappointing last week. You come so close. It was a ripping game of footy. You kind of led for the majority of the game, to be honest. And the experience probably of the North Warrnambool Eagles really shone in that last kind of 15 or 20 minutes, didn't it, Will?
Yeah, that's it. Probably, I definitely had opportunities to win it. Probably a couple missed chances. Sort of started the third quarter when we were on top, but then when we got to sort of the last quarter and the end of the game, you definitely see their experience in holding us off at the end there. Yeah.
Hey, Will, I reckon a great thing about you guys is you got the double chance, you earned the double chance. So, for a lot of you guys, it's your first Hampton League senior final. So much experience that you guys would have taken out of that game. What did Ben Canar say after the game? Obviously, sort of reflecting on the performance at Camperdown.
Well, that's just sort of it. We're obviously going to be better for it, but just sort of got to have that belief that we can sort of keep going deep in the finals.
And Will, I suppose now the big thing and the big challenge is you've got to bounce back, don't you? You can be disappointed about last week, but you got to bounce back against a side coming off a good win against a good team in Koroit last Sunday. So they're going to be up and about, the Cobden Bombers, mate, aren't they?
Yeah, that's it. Seen a bit of it on the weekend. They looked like they were playing some pretty good footy, and we've had the last couple of years we've had a few real tight games against them. So I think it'll be a pretty good game.
I'd imagine it'll be a fast-paced game. Obviously, you guys play pretty similar styles. You like running the ball quickly off half-back and using the corridor. What's the sort of the secret to try and to outplay the Bombers, mate?
Yeah, that's it. We probably both play pretty attacking like that. So maybe, I don't know, if they're getting sort of seeing if you can sort of hold onto the ball a bit more and then use that spread.
And what about yourself, mate? You must be pretty happy with your season. I know it's not over and the big pinnacle is going to be winning a premiership at Terang Mortlake, but personally you've had a wonderful year, haven't you?
Oh, yeah, I suppose. I don't really reckon I've had that sort of, I haven't really had any games where I've sort of dominated or kicked that big bag or anything, just sort of had a sort of 2 or 3 goals each game, sort of just getting a few looks and then hopefully trying to kick most of them.
And I guess too, mate, it's been a big rise up the ladder for you guys this year. Obviously finished really strongly last year. It must be exciting with the young group of players. You've probably got a lot of great mates in that side that you're running around with currently, and sort of you're starting the journey now, and hopefully this year and the next couple of years can be pretty bright for the Bloods. Yeah,
no, absolutely. Pretty close group at the moment. Yeah, lots of sort of young blokes in there that sort of, definitely all improving each last couple of years. And, hopefully, keep going.
Beautifully done, mate. Hey, listen, good luck on the weekend. It's going to be an absolute belter. The weather's not as good as last weekend, Will, but we're fingers crossed that the rain's going to stay away and it mightn't be too bad on Sunday, mate, over the Gardens Oval. We wish you all the best of luck, buddy.
Nah, thanks, boys. Thanks for that.
Good stuff. Will Kane, the Kane train, one of our faves. And when he's up and about, it's good, isn't it?
Well, that first quarter last week, he kicked 3, and I reckon he might have had another shot or 2. He might have had about 5 shots of goal in that first quarter, and just got some great delivery out in front. But to the credit of
the young fella,
Charlie McKinnon, I love it. And I know we're going to chat with Wiggsy soon, but I love that Wiggsy still had that confidence in Charlie to play on Will. And I think, from a team perspective, they really set up beautifully, a bit better behind the ball, and allowed Charlie to sort of try and get on top.
Let's go to Adam Dowie and ask him that exact question, because it would have been pretty easy for Wiggs, young 15-and-a-half-year-old Charlie McKinnon, who has a few 3 kicked on him in the first quarter, to move the young kid. But this bloke never panicked at any stage, and I reckon it was fantastic coaching. Wiggs, how are you, buddy?
Yeah, good. Thanks, boys. It was an interesting one. We sort of looked at how they got their goals in the first quarter, Terang Mortlake, and I just had written down in my notebook, turnover, turnover, turnover. And you guys would have seen that, like some of our, bringing the ball back into the corridor, some of our decision-making, execution coming out of our back half of the ground was pretty ordinary. And we really, so again, you look at the goals that Charlie got kicked on him, and it was just based purely on probably our poor skill level up the ground. So you couldn't blame Charlie on that. And look, probably the other thing with Reece Scoville being out, we actually didn't have too many other options. So, but Charlie's a really good kid. He like, even when we told him last week, Mum nearly fainted, but Charlie was, he was sort of ready to go. Played on Shannon a few weeks ago as well. So, his demeanour and that was really good. And the boys got around him at quarter time, and I thought, after that even before that, he was terrific.
Hey, Wiggsy, even after quarter time, I thought defensively you guys really set up so well, and you probably got a bit more assistance behind the ball to help with Charlie. And again, you weren't turning the footy over as much, but just Terang Mortlake really liked to use the corridor, and they used it so well in that first term. But to block that up and sort of push him a little bit wider and not get as easy ball, I think it was a great defensive performance after quarter time.
Yeah, look, it's again, you're probably touching on it there, Hilly. When we weren't giving the ball back to Terang Mortlake, and we could, play the way we wanted to play, which is again probably filling the lanes in the ground in terms of getting into our forward 50, then that helped us defend as well. So if we were sort of one side of the ground, that opens up the other side. But we were really conscious about spreading so that when Terang Mortlake got it, they'd have to probably go wider. All week we spoke about we can't leave Charlie one out against Will. So, and we looked at, I suppose, who kicks their goals, who hits the scoreboard, and we again looked at threats there. Riley Hutchins is, he's a really good player for Terang Mortlake as well. So, so we'd spoken to Jenkinson and Luke Wines. I think Adam Wines, as the game went on, probably just naturally just sat behind the ball a bit. We probably found our shape around the ball too early on wasn't great. Like they were at stoppages, they were really going probably backwards and then around the side a bit. So we adjusted there. We sort of said at half time, if you can't impact the ball, then you've got to at least find a man and keep your width a little bit. So I thought we started defending stoppages probably better. Those probably things added up a little bit.
Hey, Wiggs, I want to ask you, mate, some big names that are out. So Scoville was one, Felix Jones, Nathan Vardy and Judah Green. So who are we expecting to get back this weekend, mate?
All right, mate. I'll tell you the truth. So look, we think Vards will probably play. I actually think probably all 4 of them will. So they've just got to get through training tomorrow night. So Felix's his MRI results came back and they were basically all clear. So structurally he's pretty good. Judah Green, probably a little bit the same. Was a little bit sore. He pulled out Saturday morning. And look, again, Vards and Reece will just have to get through tomorrow night. But hopefully, and that's the truth, hopefully the four of them, get through. So probably for the first time, I sort of said to the guys last night, selection actually hasn't been... I've been involved in years where selection gives you sleepless nights, but our selection at the moment is because we just really... we struggled for depth probably all year, and so at the moment you're giving guys are probably getting a game where they might have thought they were out of it. Maybe in the years gone by they would have been, but at the moment they're not. So I sort of grabbed a couple of young guys the other day. I think I said to Lockie Wines last week, I said, "Hey mate, if Dylan Parrish doesn't play, you're probably going to play," and he said, "What?" And I was in the kitchen, we're doing the dishes at Bushfield, or he was, I wasn't. But so that's sort of where we're at a little bit. So this week actually, this week's selection is a little bit, certainly probably the most challenging of this year. So obviously those, at least three of them, Jude's probably been in and out a little bit, but his last game against Croydon was probably the best game he's played this year. So it's going to be a tough selection.
What about the opposition, Wiggsy? Obviously, you played the Roosters a few weeks ago up at the friendlies, and you got the job done in a really tough, in tough conditions, pretty windy up and so forth. How much do you take out of that game? And then looking at the venue this week, Terang Mortlake, Terang, I should say, it's not a huge ground. So does that sort of play into your advantage a little bit with the style that you guys play?
Yeah, look, Hilly, if we, say this week, even with the weather, I think it's meant to be probably windy pushing across the ground towards the scoreboard side, and even with the size of the ground and the conditions, I think if we had to pick the conditions, that'd probably be it. So again, in terms of that regard, we've probably got, no excuse. I know at South Warrnambool, the ground was probably quite heavy. It was a little bit, wasn't super windy, but windy enough, probably blowing to one side. So, but look, I think the interesting with South Warrnambool is you go, all right, well, I'll sit down and watch some footage, but they pretty much have been able to, you look at their best 22 and you go, well, when did they actually play? They probably, to be honest, they probably haven't played together as best 22 probably for the whole year. Batters would know the answer to that question, but they've been managing it. Obviously, they have their Rebels guys who won't be available, but the last time he played, and there was no Jack Dye, there was no Sam Thompson, there was no Sam Kelly, Liam Yule got injured, and there's probably a few others there as well who, again, in their best side. So South sort of finished on top for a reason. They got good depth, and again, we haven't played them either time where they've been at full strength. So we're anticipating this will be a massive challenge. But again, in terms of where we're playing and the conditions, we're really happy with Terang.
Hey, Wiggs, beautifully done, mate, as always. Looking forward to this Saturday's clash. Winner goes straight through to a grand final. It's going to be an absolute beauty, mate, and always a pleasure to talk, bud.
No worries, boys. Good on you. Thank you.
Yeah, great stuff. Adam Dairy there, the coach of the North Warrnambool Eagles. Mate, always speaks so well. I love the honesty because the whispers are going around town. So, gee whiz, that is massive news for the North Warrnambool Eagles to get the big man back in particular, Big Vards. That is huge news.
Well, it's interesting to see where they go too, obviously, because Jarvis Birmingham's done a really good job in the ruck.
Yep.
Ben Muggerman's been terrific, and I thought he was super in that second half last week. Do they play him more forward? Do they play him, what's the ratio? If he's fit and ready to go, what do they do minutes-wise on the ball but then deep forward? Because I guess, too, they want to be making sure that his knees good enough, and we're not going to be upsetting it anyway.
Yeah. Hey, listen, let's have a look at the highlights from, of course, last Sunday. We're going to go to first the elimination final, Koroit and Cobden. And, it was the Bombers who got out of the blocks so well, didn't they?
Yeah, Tommy Spokes caused him some havoc. He kicked the first goal of the afternoon for the Cobden Bombers, and it was probably the non-scoring end, really. Like most of the goals throughout the course of the day were scored down the Nelson end, but this fella was on fire, Paul Pekin. Just a bit of an opportunistic goal there. He meant to paddle it on, he lost it. Dribble kick accidentally and went through, but he kicked a couple of really nice ones. O'Sullivan was terrific for the Koroit Saints, arguably their best player. I thought his attack on the footy, and he's such a powerful player, whether he's in the midfield or whether he's at centre half forward. He clunks the marks, and a nice player for the Saints. And I think Maskell medal contention for mine.
Yeah, no. He's in great nick and has been all season. And there he is again, Paddy O'Sullivan. He's just the barometer. He'd be disappointed. He kind of missed a goal late in the game, running into an open goal, and he'd be really disappointed. Paulie Pekin lit up the first turn. This is was our Lucas Brothers snag of the day on the boundary. Just a little banana from the little maestro, if you don't mind. But it was really this first quarter that set it up. We knew at some stage Koroit were going to come, and they'd certainly come in that third quarter and had a real crack. But they probably just ran out of a little bit of steam.
Yeah, they absolutely did, and it was a great performance in the end by the Cobden Bombers, because really they did get dominated against in that third term, and they could have easily threw in the towel. But to their credit, their midfielders got back on top. They started that running game off half back, taking the game on, using the corridor, and then we've sort of mentioned it a fair bit, Matty, that the great thing about Cobden is their unpredictability up forward. So they didn't have Jesse Williamson come into that lineup. He was a late withdrawal. So Pekin had to play a bit more forward. Spokes can be unpredictable. Marnie can be unpredictable.
Jesse Williamson back this week?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure the extent of his hamstring injury. I suppose, probably every chance to give it a week off. But, you've got Coronius in there who really gives them a target. So I love the way that Cobden's forward line structured, because it's not just a reliance on the big fella, Mickey, to kick the goals every week. There's a bit of a sharing of it around, and they've got great midfielders that can run through there as well. Speaking of this, about this young fella for Jyron Neve, he was a real major catalyst of that re-emergence in that third team. It was enormous, along with this fella, Tommy Couch.
Yeah, I reckon you're right, mate. I reckon Tommy Couch and Jyron Neve certainly got things firing, along with Paddy O'Sullivan in that third quarter. And we thought, hang on, the little champs, they're not done with here yet. They're back. But I reckon, to the credit of the Cobden Bombers, the way they responded, in that last quarter, especially the first 5 or 10 minutes, was exactly what they needed. Yeah,
well, they weren't going to lie down, and we knew that it was going to be a big first 5-10 minutes, and I think it was orchestrated from this goal here. Ben Berry tied on the boundary, 30 metres out, and he put it straight through, and that just got the real excitement, and it got their mojo back a little bit, because the third term was a term that they had a lot of turnovers, and this was probably the big goal. Pekin from outside 50, probably was nearly the icing on the cake. It sort of really put a bit of taste in the Koroit player's mouth, and time was getting on a little bit as well. Berry with the left foot snap was a beauty, and all the momentum was with the Bombers, after that first goal. And even though that Koroit had some really good looks, they just weren't able to manufacture, and it was a tough end to kick too. The wind sort of picked up a little bit up that Warrnambool end of the venue, but great crowd, great game of footy, and the Bombers, they've given themselves every chance to have a good game this week and to potentially move on.
Yeah, brilliant stuff by the Cobden Football Club, and commiserations to the Koroit Saints, whose year finishes in 2023. Let's have a look at the qualifying final up at the Lura Oval, played in front of a massive crowd as well. Sun was shining, and this man, Dylan Parrish, he really turned on for the North Warrnambool Eagles. His best game of the season, Hilly.
Yeah, well, he kicked 5 goals and gave him a really good target. His body-on-body work was enormous, and this fella too, he started forward, Alex Maloney, then he sort of went back a little bit throughout the course of the day and back forward, but he gave him a good target as well. But Parrish was enormous, and even in our pre-game on Hampton League Live, Tildy Carter said that one of the key ingredients for North to get the job done today would have been Parrish, kicking goals. Hasn't had a lot of goals kicked this season. We spoke about this fella on his interview, but Will Cone was enormous in that first quarter. Kicked 3 goals, really had his kicking boots on. Probably had a few misses later on in the day, which, I'm not going to say it was costly, but certainly didn't help the Bloods' cause. But he's a young kid who's learning his craft, and he's going to get better by the experience.
This kid's a superstar of the competition. Of course, Maskell medalist at Birmingham, magnificent. Tommy Batten up forward for the Eagles. Had a few chances, probably squandered a few early, but delivered late when needed to be. Huey Porty, another youngster for Terang Mortlake, who's certainly taken his game to a new level. And this kid here, after quarter time, Jackson Grundy was the best man on the ground by an absolute street.
Yeah, had a lot of the football, but it was his clearance work around stoppages. He's so strong, and his core strength's enormous. And he was terrific for the North Warrnambool Eagles. And I reckon, even though he's a young fella, he's their vice captain, he's an experienced player in regards to their list profile. He was enormous for them. And Tommy Batten, a couple of nice sort of goals that he kicked, just gave the Eagles a real chance, after sort of that quarter time siren.
And this third quarter was an interesting quarter, because I thought the Bloods really controlled the game for the first kind of 10 minutes. And then it was all the North Warrnambool Eagles, wasn't it? Rolly Hutchins kicked a couple of crackers, back-to-back goals. He's a quality player, and you talk about Maskell medal, he's got to feature prominently as well, Hilly. But you kind of thought, they were just in control, the Bloods. And as we said, they missed a couple of chances that they possibly, would like to have back again.
Yeah, well, there's a few that they would have probably normally chewed up, but I guess that's the occasion of finals. It's about the moments, the little moments, and the Eagles got 3 in about 3 minutes, and Ankins Noski he kicked 2 of those, and Tommy Batten kicked probably the goal of the day, which was our goal of the day. Tied on the boundary. I'm sure we've got footage here of Tommy's goal was right in front, which is an absolute beauty, and that just sort of spurred on and gave maybe the momentum back to the North Warrnambool Eagles. And we know the Eagles too, in a short amount of time, they can really hurt you on the scoreboard once they get their stoppage game going and get those clearances. And, you've got a couple of nice targets down there to sort of finish off the work.
And what a cracking final quarter it was. Of course, the final margin was a point to the North Warrnambool Eagles, but it toed and froed, and even right down to the wire in that last kind of minute and a half, wasn't it?
Yeah, there was a couple of moments there. Lockie Wareham was sort of not far out from goal, and he thought he kicked it, and there was, obviously the two umpires discussing that passage of play, and it was decided that it was touched off the boot. And even, Will talking to him off air, and Jared Lewis after the game, they said no, it was well and truly touched. But yeah, I just reckon they took advantage of those little moments, the North Warrnambool Eagles, and this fella here, Jackson Grundy, he just had everything going in his favour. He just couldn't miss a target, really set up the Eagles. And I thought Ben Muggerman, I'm going to shout out to Big Truck Muggerman as well.
Yeah, he was fantastic.
I thought Darcy Hobbs really got in control of him and gave the Bloods first juice in the first quarter. But Truck, with his experience that he's got, a number of years playing footy, I thought he really controlled things in the midfield after quarter time, and was a bit of a catalyst along with Grundy and Birmingham and the like in the pivot. And
this is the final goal of the game. Got it back to a 1-point lead right on the final siren. You can see young Tanner going back quickly, but time just beat the Terang Mortlake Bloods, and the Eagles win in an absolute thriller. It was a cracking game, that is for sure. All sets us up, Hilly, this weekend, of course, Saturday, Terang. It is going to be a beauty. South Warrnambool will take on North Warrnambool. Who's going to win, mate?
Yeah, well, at the moment, with Wigsy, Chucky and Vardy could be playing, it sort of throws it's an interesting one. I think I'm still going to lean with South at the moment. They've been the best team all year, and obviously deserve a spot in the grand final with the way they've played. But again, I think, like we've seen on the weekend, it's going to be a pretty close margin. And these two sides historically are pretty tight. So I'll say South by maybe under a goal. And then Sunday, at his first semi-final action, loser is finished for 2023. Terang Mortlake taking on Cobden at the Gardens Oval, Port Fairy. I need more time to think about this one with lineups. Williamson comes in potentially. What Terang Mortlake do with their lineup and that as well, if Kanar comes in. So, yeah, I don't know. I might wait till Saturday to answer that one, because it's going to be an exciting game, because both sides have that brand of footy where it's exciting. They punch it off half-back on that slingshot footy, and that's run and gun. How they sort of try and nullify each other is going to be the interesting one. They've got some good forwards, some good midfielders. Yeah, I'll try and think about that one a little more closely. Hey, don't forget the Warrnambool Toyota $5,000 kick is back too. So go to 3YB FM Facebook page, also Coast FM Facebook page to enter. 10 lucky kickers, the chance to win $5,000 if you can kick it into the back on grand final day into that Warrnambool Toyota Hilux, unbreakable Hilux. Fantastic stuff. Hey, listen, it is going to be a magnificent. We touched on this last week. I said it was going to be a good final series. Weather not as good this weekend, but fingers crossed it holds off. Going to be a great second week of our Fresher Finals series. We hope to see the footy and the netball this weekend.